Hi everyone, I'm Laura Warnod, and this is the WonderWorkers podcast. WonderWorkers is an interview-based podcast where I invite changemakers to talk about their experience, their mission, and drive towards impacting the world, and ultimately to inspire, educate, and empower entrepreneurs, business leaders, and owners, and young people on how they can build together a more sustainable world. This community of WonderWorkers act behind the scenes to lead the world towards a new era of purpose, self-actualization, and innovation. This is a generation who shows no limits to what they can accomplish, no tolerance for dehumanization, and use their uniqueness as a real power to change the world. We want to invite you, responsible leaders, entrepreneurs, young people, and all other listeners in your quest for purpose to give you too the power to change the world. But having powers alone does not make us superheroes. Even them need allies. It's only when we accept our differences, combine our powers, belong and thrive together that our forces can turn into superpowers. We are WonderWorkers, a community of changemakers, entrepreneurs, business owners, and aspiring ones who use their superpowers collectively to change the world. So tell me, what are your superpowers? In today's episode of WonderWorkers, I'm with Viviane Paraschiv. I was so inspired by her experience of working in the fashion industry and now running her own business, which does align with my background quite a lot. And that's what got me driven to contact her and learn more about her experience. After our first coffee chat, I really left so energized and motivated and full of advices on how I could go forward with my business. And yeah, as I told her, it really felt like talking to a mentor. I'm always so keen to understand more about what makes changemakers tick, what drove them to where they are today, and how they're living and experiencing their entrepreneurial journey. So I'm so glad to have her on the podcast as a fashion changemaker. She's also a very funny and bubbly and smart, effervescent woman who has a lot of experience working in the fashion industry. As I said, she's actually telling us a really funny story about a time when she worked at the very beginning of her career. She's also telling us about, the journey of becoming a founder and how do you go about creating your own business and all the trial and error that you need to go through before feeling comfortable jumping into the entrepreneurial adventure, and what does success means to her, what were the challenges that she encountered while, building a business, and what did she learn from it. There's so many interesting insights, and I'm really excited for you to listen to Viviane's story today. So let me tell you a little bit more about Viviane. With over 12 years in the industry, Viviane has built the future of luxury and fashion at a global scale within some of the most renowned companies, such as Louis Vuitton, Ralph Lauren, and Farfetch, leading teams across Paris, Brussels, London, and Hong Kong. She also launched in 2019 a community for fashion professionals, Fashion Conversations, to elevate our knowledge and share resources and opportunities. She now launched her consulting business to support innovation-led startups structure their development and build a sustainable strategy and operations. I'm really excited to have her in the podcast. I'm sure you're going to love this episode. It's a very authentic and organic conversation. Well, let's jump in. Hi, Viviane. Thank you for
Laura.
being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. We've actually met for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I found that, we got along very well, the first time. And I really had, a really great conversation with you about, about entrepreneurship and fashion. And because we have a similar background, I think we're kind of aligned on some of the things that we're doing today as well.
Yeah.
And I really felt like I was talking to a mentor or
oh my God. Wow.
No, but you gave me actually really great advices on, the direction that I could take for my business and what I could do and so on. And when I left our coffee chat, I was so like energized. I had so much stuff in my head. I came back home and I was like writing all the notes that I needed, all the things that I needed to do. So yeah, and just saying that it was great, and I'm really glad to have you here today.
No, thank you. It's really, really fun. And I also really appreciate our chat. Like, I think when you have sort of a conversation that really goes both ways, it's not just like you giving all the answers. Like, it was really like interesting, and I enjoyed it. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
Cool. So I guess today we're here to talk about your business and what you do and you as an entrepreneur. So same question I asked to all my guests at the very beginning is, what's your story? Who is Viviane?
Oh my God. Okay. That's, let's do the short version. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm essentially, who am I today? I think that's like the most important, because obviously I feel like I've evolved a lot in the past, few years. I'm really bad at counting, and also I'm scared at saying how many years I've been, working for. Makes me feel very old. But yeah, today I would sort of describe myself as entrepreneur, but also a consultant. I really enjoy working with companies and people specifically, because I think that's what's really driving me. It's working with amazing people who have great ideas, and you could describe it as a growth consultant. So I really help taking a great idea, taking a great, small team that have an amazing product, an amazing service, and help them grow, help them find clients, but also build for sustainable growth. And I'm not just saying sustainable in the sense that it's good for the planet. Obviously, that's one of my topics that I'm very passionate about, but it's also, how do you set up a business that can grow, that can scale, but in the same time being, prepared for it in terms of your operations, your team structure, and a lot of things that you have to do within a company to really like scale fast, but also in a good way. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so what are the steps in your journey that brought you to become a consultant in innovation and growth?
I don't think that there's been sort of like one, wow moment or like aha moment where I thought, this is like, now this is my path, I think it's sort of a multitude of things. First, I think is definitely my parents. Like, they're entrepreneurs, they have their own company, so it's always sort of been, and I've only realized that very recently, but this is kind of the model that I had, even though my parents and my dad specifically like always wanted me to go into a big company, because like obviously as a parent you project on your on your kids. I think we all know that or realize that at one point, but I think that's definitely was sort of one of the kind of shaping moments or mindset that I was brought up in. The 9 to 5, like I never really, like it would never really happen in my household. Like my parents had to work weekends sometimes, but because they were working for themselves, like it's sort of like this very fluid state between your life and also your work. So that's kind of how I was like brought up. And then I think as I sort of worked, and I worked with like big companies, I only worked in very big teams, big structures. I worked at Louis Vuitton and Ralph Lauren and then Farfetch recently, and all companies were public. Farfetch actually went public when I was already part of the company. I was always sort of used to that structure, but then very often I would get from my managers, when you get your reviews and stuff, they were like, oh, you're so entrepreneurial. Like, you always think out of the box and you always like drive the team to think differently. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Like doing this for like 10 plus years, you kind of start seeing a pattern. And my now husband, he's also an entrepreneur at heart. So I think that also really inspired me or challenged also a little bit. And at one point I just thought like it was probably the time to, I had this like gut feeling of doing it, like it was kind of there and bubbling up. And then I sort of found, it took me like a few years, to be honest, of thinking and discussing with friends and knowing how to position myself and what I could be offering and how I could be helping and who I could be helping out, because being a consultant is a really big word and it can mean so many things, but I needed to make it like my own and really, really understand very clearly what my USP was, or and who my clients, but also who I really wanted to work with, because that's the thing. It's when you're a consultant, sure, there's like freedom, but you also have to be very clear in your mind about who you want to spend your time with. You know, it's not just like who's paying, obviously, but like who do you really want to work with? And yeah, it's like you have to be intentional about that. And so it took me a long time, to be fair, to kind of have this like very clear vision in my mind. And so yeah, that's what led me to today.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because when I looked at your profile on LinkedIn and like all the experiences that you had, it seemed like you went from working in-house in fashion and luxury brands, and then I feel like you've tried to found some companies as well, or like you tried some entrepreneurial things and then went back in-house, and then there was a lot of like trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, it's like fail and iterate. That obviously like something that we use a lot of tech. It's doing and failing and understanding like what was, you know, taking the learnings. And I did have like, you could call it a failed entrepreneurial experience. I don't call it as a failure. It was like a super interesting learning curve. I love my co-founder, Mesh. If you hear this, like, you know, I still love you very much. And we parted ways in a, you know, like very nicely. We worked on this project and this company for, I think, a bit more than a year. It was during lockdown, so also very interesting, challenging, but interesting times to actually launch a business. And we tried something. I learned like a tremendous amount of things. And then we kind of realized at one point, like we wanted different things and we were not really aligned on like the, you know, on like how to do things. And I was also at a tipping point in my life. Like I had just given birth and I had become a mother. And I was like, okay, this is like, I needed to make a choice and know if I was still, you know, we were still aligned as co-founders, and it wasn't. So we kind of, you know, I kind of like decided to take a step back, but I don't see it as a failure. And it was really interesting to kind of also do that while I was working, kind of understanding how you could build a business while not just quitting your, you know, like your job, and just kind of seeing how it could grow and seeing the potential, while also knowing like you could only allocate like at most a couple of, you know, hours a day at most, you know? And I think that's a really interesting challenge, you know? Too often, I think we romanticize the idea of an entrepreneur who just like goes to their boss and says, you know, like I quit, I hate this stuff, and then has this amazing idea. And then in like 2 months, they build a multi-million company, you know, like a lot of, I think the really amazing entrepreneurs, or at least the ones that inspire me, are also the ones who do this slowly and who do this mindfully and who try to, like balance everything out, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's also why, you know, I'm so interested by talking to people like you who are kind of, you know, doing successful things for themselves. But, you know, there's a whole world for like successful entrepreneurs before the actual like big success that we see, like the whole behind the scenes. And how does it work when you have an idea? What happens between the moment when you have an idea to the moment you actually bring it to life? But then, you know, once you bring it to life, how do you actually grow it, and like all the steps that you know goes to that. So I think that's why it's really important, I think, to kind of put a light on this and talk about this as well, and show the reality to people of what it means to be an entrepreneur. I'm wondering, what's your definition of success and what's your relationship to failure?
And I think failure, it's interesting because I didn't actually like really enjoy failure when I was younger. I think I was taught it wasn't good. That also, I remember this like thing that was very ingrained. It's like, you cannot be average, you know, like that was kind of like the worst thing that you could do in my household. And I think that's one of the reasons why I probably never even like overdo things. I'm definitely, you know, working on trying to relax a little bit and not like try to put too many things on my plate, and that's an ongoing process. But I do really feel like I have become much more like, I accept much more failure, because I do think that it's more about the lessons that you get from it. And it's funny because actually, like when I started, you know, hiring people in my team and interviewing, I always ask like, what was your like biggest failure? Or tell me, even not even a big one, like one of your failures that you can think of. I think it says a lot about a person. And even, you know, recently in one of my last experiences, I had someone in my team who said, you know, like they were starting sort of to get some feedback, you know, constructive criticism, but it was really like we were really trying to do it sort of mindfully, because I think I'm also a manager, like, you know, I take care of my people, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a mama bear, you know. And, you know, and I kind of felt that, you know, she was a bit uncomfortable with it, and I started talking to her as a human being to human being. And she actually mentioned after a little bit, while she like sort of warmed up or, you know, realized that we were not pushing her or anything, she said, it's actually the first time that I'm getting, you know, feedback. Like I'm getting like negative feedback, because before I've only been told I was like amazing and awesome and it was great. And so like, it's hard the first time that someone's, and I remember like the first time I had, and specifically in a work environment, because I was pushing myself so hard in my first role and my first job. And like, even I was trying to be someone else, you know, I was like trying to be perfect. I was trying to be like, and I realized like people actually like, gave me feedback and said like, we kind of feel like you're not like the real Viviane and blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, and like the first time it hit me so hard, I was like, you know, can I say fuck?
Yeah.
You know, I was like, shit, like, why am I doing this, you know? And then obviously as part of my job, like I also started working a lot more in tech, and like you have to test and iterate and test and learn and see what works, what doesn't, because you can't know in advance. So I'm all that to say, that's a very long-winded answer, but all of that to say, like, I feel I'm much more comfortable with failure now, and it's not always easy, but I really like try to embrace it much more and really think of like the learnings. And when I sometimes, you know, it's hard to like rewire your brain, and when I go, oh, why did that not work out? Oh, I feel like, you know, a bit of a failure. I feel like, oh, I don't feel good. I can try and stop that sort of internal voice and go, it's okay, Viviane. You know, like, I talk to myself. It's a bit strange.
I think everyone does.
Probably. At least I admit it. And, you know, kind of take a step back and say, that was okay, you know.
Yeah. No big deal.
No big deal. And how can you move forward? And then there was another question. What was the other question?
The reason I asked those two questions together is because we tend to success. Yeah. What's your definition of success? Because I guess sometimes from what I see from my experience as well is from all the kind of small failures that we experience in life that also changes our definition of success. So that's why I was interested to know that.
That's hard, I think. Like knowing what my definition of success is. I think for me it's, and that's, you know, I think part of like what I'm able to do now is be able to choose the people that I surround myself with. I think that's very important to me, like the kind of energy that I allow to come into my life, whether it's like friends, obviously, like, you know, we can choose like who's our friend or not, but I think in business it's a lot harder, and that to me is like one of the like definitions. And I think the second is being successful for me is being able to choose how I spend my time. And you know, if I want to be with you today recording a podcast, or if I want to close my laptop 1 hour earlier and go and pick up my daughter at nursery, or, you know, just like stop with what I'm doing. I think, being like independent and being able to really have a choice, I think that is sort of important to me. I always struggle with like other people telling me what to do. I mean, no, I'm not a rebel, like, but
yeah, because you worked in like really big companies,
exactly.
And I guess you had like managers who
you know, I wasn't the worst, I hope so. No, but I think that's like at the end of the day, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week.
Yeah, no, I do relate to that too, I think.
What is your definition of success?
We're turning the interview around. My definition of success is to, I think as you said, like have the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and kind of choose where I put my energy in as well. Like from a people perspective, but also from a time perspective and energy perspective. I feel like obviously when you work for like big companies and you build experiences for working for companies and stuff, you're learning a lot of things. But I feel like most of the time you end up being, I don't know, surrounded by people who do not necessarily want the best for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're working by yourself, then you can choose wherever you put your energy and kind of not be sabotaged by external things that you can't control. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, definitely that. And I guess I really relate to what you said as well about struggling with failure when you were young, because I had the same. I think depending on like the environment you grew up in, you sometimes have like an example of what success means, and therefore if you want to reach that success, you can't fail. Like it's like what people teaches you. And now I realize like that's actually put me in so many difficult situations to have that mindset, because now, you know, I need to relearn how, you know, I kind of meet people, how I do my work, how I do stuff, because otherwise I'm stressing out about every little things because I'm scared to fail. So yeah, I definitely relate to that. And I think I still have a lot of things to learn, obviously. But
I think that's what's really interesting about being a human being, is like you have the ability to try and rewire your brain. You know, it's hard, but it's feasible. I'm not an expert on it. Like there's tons of like amazing people who talk about it and we can help. But obviously, like we're formatted to whatever our parents showed us or whoever we were surrounded with, whether it's like a, you know, older like siblings or the family structure, or like all of these things obviously influence us. And then when you become an adult, like hopefully you kind of are able to look into it a little bit and think if those patterns make sense, if they're or if they're actually hurting you, or and it's like it's hard, but it's really interesting to be able to do that. Obviously, I went to therapy, you know, like you know, like it's sometimes you need a bit of help to do it. But yeah, I think that's what's really exciting. It's like who you are today can be very different, and will probably be very different from who you are in a couple of, you know, weeks, months, years, than even like who you were before. And we are able to change ourselves and try and, I guess, like improve and, you know, get better at doing things. But I think that's what's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's so funny that you're talking about that, because I'm actually going through that process right now with my therapist as well, and like with myself. I think I'm reaching an age where it is the time where you're kind of rethinking everything that you've learned during your childhood.
It never stops, Laura.
Oh, damn it.
I'm a bit older. Trust me.
Yeah, I guess there's loads of steps in life as well. Like, for example, becoming a mother. I'm sure that that's like...
We can do a whole podcast about that.
Exactly. that must change like your whole perspective on life and stuff. Okay, damn it. I thought I was gonna kind of...
It's never over.
It's good because you're then learning more and more things about yourself, and then at some point hopefully becoming like the best version of yourself as well, like because you're kind of doing all this work in the background.
I think like that's the thing, like you're the best version of yourself. You're always trying to achieve it, but it might change, or you know, you're always kind of like striving for that, but you're I think so, like you never really get there, right? It's like what you want to tend to, but you know, it's like always a work in progress. Yeah. I hope that's not too depressing though.
No, it's not. It's life, right? And it's part of ourselves, and also like, you know, it makes us the people that we are today too. So important. I guess if we circle back a little bit, what did your experience in fashion taught you? Or like, what are the learnings that you kind of had that helped you to do the things that you do today as a consultant?
I think what I recently realized even more is my first experience at Vuitton. So I was there for like 7-8 years, something like that, which is a long time. I never thought I would be. Like I never actually, it's horrible to say, but like I never dreamt at being at work at their company. It just kind of happened.
Okay.
And then when I was in it, I just really enjoyed it. And so I wanted to stay in. But I realized that, and one of the reasons I think why this company is like so incredible and like the, you know, one of the biggest like luxury companies, is it managed to hire really talented people, but also create this culture where people were really working together. And I think that's something that I've rarely experienced. Just like great minds really there to sort of like listen to each other, bounce off each other, bounce off ideas, and really have this like collaborative approach. And I think I realized only when I got out of the company, because it was my first experience, I realized how amazing that was, and that not every company, I was so naive when I got out, like not every company works that way. Because to me it was a given, you know. I had been in that structure for so long, and it was the first defining experience in my professional life. And so that was very, very interesting. And I saw it again, can't give too many details, but like I saw it again recently, and I was like, this is amazing. And we had amazing people around the table, like incredible, I can't say who they were, but like incredible people. And seeing how they were kind of like, you know, exchanging ideas, and in like a matter of a day, we just like all together worked on this project to make it absolutely like 1,000 times better than it was at the beginning of the day. And that was fascinating, I think. And then the second, which is kind of a good thing, and I think also something I unlearned, is luxury and fashion is very much about detail. And I think while it's absolutely incredible, like I know that up until today, sometimes I'm like stuck on a little, is that dot there, or should there be a space in there, or, you know, like how does it look visually? I think like also the visual aspect of things in fashion and luxury is like super, you know, is like key, and that's something that I've definitely taken on. But then on the other side, like on the flip side, sometimes trying to do something perfectly it can be an enemy, you know. I love this like sentence that says like, is it done is better than perfect, which is something that like is mostly used in tech. So I kind of try to balance that out. I'm like, how good can it be today if we need to deliver it like today, this week? And then what's our like North Star? What are we trying to get to? And when can we? And it's sort of like balancing that out. Because in luxury, you do always say, if it's not perfect, it cannot go out, you know. But I think also luxury is changing, and like fashion is changing a little bit, because at least like in, you know, I work more in sort of this, you know, innovative projects, and that's always kind of been what I've been involved in. You have to be a bit more comfortable with the uncomfortable. So yeah, I think those are the two big things that I've sort of like my key takeaways from working in that industry.
It's quite interesting that you're actually saying that, because not saying that, you know, it's a generality, but I feel like the fashion industry has definitely a lot of things to learn from other industries in terms of innovation, people, diversity and inclusion. And obviously there are also a lot of amazing like advantages, like it's such a creative industry. There are a lot of incredible people that I also worked with, and it's a beautiful industry, but there's also a lot of things to improve. So it's great that you had an experience like that in such a big house as well, because I think it's quite rare.
But I think like, you know, don't want to sugarcoat it. Like there were also some horrible people, you know. I mean, let's be honest. But I think in every industry, in every company, there is, you know. I do believe that in fashion, we tend to value talent more than the rest, you know, the other skills. And I think probably, I don't know, it's a combination of maybe like me being lucky, but also because I've worked more on sort of like tech and innovation projects, maybe I was with different set of people around me, or maybe I just like really wanted to stick with the good ones, you know. You know, I have some like fashion cringe stories, but I also have some amazing memories. So, you know, I kind of always try to take the positive. Let's
hear a really horrible fashion story, I guess.
Oh my god. No, I think one that it wasn't terrible, but it was like really scary, because it was, I think I had been at Vuitton for a couple of months. So obviously, like, you know, you're very young. It's the first time that you're working, and also like in a really big company. And then I was working in the ready-to-wear department at the time. And it's like, I was a nobody, right? No one knew my name. I mean, my bosses obviously, but like, otherwise, no one knew who I was. They just knew I was like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was working in like sales merchandising, which basically means I was doing a lot of like Excel spreadsheets and kind of working on the ready-to-wear collections and the fashion show also, but really on like the business side. So how, like the open to buys, looking at budgets, how much would we kind of like allocate to each region, etc. So I was in Excel a lot and, PowerPoints and on the phone, basically like talking to our regions and stuff. So one day, and I remember it was very awkward because like my desk was like the door was in my back, so everyone could see what I was doing on my screen. And like when anyone would enter the room, like I was just, my back was at the door, so it was like really strange. And then I remember this like vividly. The big boss like walks in, and she was this like very tall woman, very imposing. Everyone was kind of scared of her. She wasn't very, like warm. And so she walks in, and I can't remember if she looks at me or she looks at my boss, and he goes, like pointing at me, and she's like, what is this girl doing in the next couple of days? And I'm like, me? And my boss goes like, no, it's, like, I don't know, what do you have in mind? I'm not going to say her name. And she goes, well, we absolutely need help in the studio, in the atelier, because the fashion show is in a few days and it's a mess. So she needs to come in, follow me, and like help out because, we need help. I look at, I had two bosses. I was like, what do I do? And I go, yeah, sure. Like, Vivian will come with you, tell her what she needs to do. So like I walk in the elevator with this woman who doesn't even know my name. Like we go up till on the last floor, because at the time the studio was on the last floor. It was amazing. And then I go, how can I help? And then she says, okay, so Marc Jacobs just decided to change completely his collection because he just finished like New York Fashion Week and he just sent like new drawings. So we have to redo the whole collection. You just have to make yourself useful. And I go, what do you mean? Like, okay, but what do you mean? And she's like, I'll introduce you to the head of the studio and then she'll tell you everything. And so basically she just put me there. She said, I can't remember even the name of this lovely woman who was like, I think it was Françoise, like the head of the studio. And she goes, Viviane, Françoise, Viviane, there you go. And then she leaves and I go, okay. And then I had like a little, I don't know, a snack or something. And the first thing she tells me, bless this woman, she was lovely. She's like, I'm so sorry, but you cannot eat in the studio. I'm like, of course. Like first misstep, like, so I'm like, okay, sure. I put it in the bin. And then I'm like, how can I help you? What can I do? And she's like, okay, let's think. I don't know. Maybe you can first like ask people around if they need anything. And I go, great. Like seriously, it was just like I had been picked up from like the office, and basically I had to figure out how to help these people who were like amazing, but I had just been like plucked there. And so for literally 3 days I just started making friends with everyone and be like, how can I help you? Is everything okay? Can I bring you anything, or do you need, and like basically it was like either helping one of the pattern makers to help her like redo a pattern, or at one point they said, oh, we got like this delivery of fabric and and they're like crinkled fabrics, and so we need just someone to like take the fabric out of the bags, so like all of these little things. I was obviously like very young and I was like, I'll do anything. But it was kind of this situation where I was just all of a sudden someone said, sure, we'll get Vivian, like this little young fella to like help us out and she'll figure it out. And I really had to figure it out. But at the beginning, like the first few minutes, it was so daunting because I was thinking, they're just gonna like laugh at me or be like, why is she, like I really wanted to make myself useful. So I think that was the most scary kind of devil wears Prada kind of moment.
Yeah, because you're here, but then you don't know why you're here really.
Yeah, exactly.
And you need to figure it out by yourself.
Yeah.
In an environment that
where they're
you're not
already stressed.
And in an environment where you're not necessarily familiar with, because I guess like also the studio design thing is very specific area.
And then at one point that was actually funny. They were just like, can you go back downstairs, because the office of like Marc Jacobs was downstairs and they were redoing the ground floor. And they're like, I think it's like you get off the elevator, left, right, like nothing, no specific.
Oh my God.
And then I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do that. And I obviously opened the wrong door and I just like walk in Marc Jacobs.
No way.
And like in a one-to-one meeting with his like business partner, and I go, sorry, wrong door.
Oh,
Just
no.
close it.
Oh my God, so
And I was just
embarrassing.
like, this is great. But again, I was like, they don't know who I am.
Yeah, they're never gonna find me.
They don't know my name. It's fine. I
Yeah.
just opened the door. But on that moment of
Yeah, it's like panic attack.
yeah, and then very nicely though, I was obviously like mega tired after 3 days because I was working until like 10, 11 p.m. like super late, but it was very fun. And then obviously the day of the fashion show, you know, I tell my boss like I'm gonna just like she tells me, she's like, take your day off, you've worked more than enough, like thank you so much, etc. And then she calls me, I think I was in bed. She calls me, she says, actually, our boss, not to say her name, just wants to know if you want to come to the fashion show. I'm like, yeah. I put on some like pants and tried to, I don't know, like look decent. And so she actually was quite nice because she like got me a pass to attend the fashion show. That was
amazing.
cool.
So it was all worth it.
Yeah, it was nice. It was actually interesting.
Oh, nice.
That's also when you realize like fashion shows are overrated. But
yeah.
all of that work for 20 minutes.
Yeah. No, exactly.
But
definitely.
it was cool.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, you seem like you had a really like interesting experience working in fashion.
Yeah. No, but it was fun. Like, you know, you get some fun stories, but it's not people often think it's like, you know, the glitters and it's like fun and but it's
hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, definitely. And so to kind of link back everything together, so you've worked in fashion for a couple of years, you've had this amazing experience, and you have tried out some things like building your own business and kind of went back working in-house and stuff. And then one day you were like, okay, now I'm ready to kind of go solo and be a consultant and kind of build my own business. You're also like co-founder of Fashion Conversations. So I will talk about that too later. But what was, I guess now from your experience, like one of the biggest challenge of building your own business?
I think my biggest challenge was just first knowing if someone would be interested in working with me. You know, like I had never tested the waters, obviously. Like, you know, the business that I had, which was called Twist, it was like my own. It wasn't as a consultant. I had never been a consultant before. So asking people to actually, you know, like put a price on like your services can be a bit daunting. I didn't want to leave my job and be in this like gray zone of not having anyone and being this, you know, like this spiral of I don't have a client, I have to hustle, I have to find someone, and like being in that mindset. So I really wanted to make sure that I was leaving with something. So that was for me the biggest one. The rest, I built it over the years. I obviously became very intentional about leaving and about working on my next step after I came back from my maternity leave. And so yeah, I think that was for me the biggest thing is like find a client and find someone that I feel really great about working with, but also who is aligned with like my value, you know, and like putting a value on my experience.
How do you overcome challenges now? Because I think all the good side of like being an entrepreneur, like working by yourself, like we talked about, like freedom and kind of the ability to choose what we do with our time and the people we're surrounded with. But I guess, I mean, for me personally, I've had a lot of like struggles as well and challenges as, you know, being a early entrepreneur. So what did you learn from like building your own kind of business, and how do you overcome challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me is going back to this definition of success. Is like not over-promising, because I think I'm so passionate about the people I work with and the projects I work on that I want to do more always. Like I'm like, yes, and this, because I have like a lot of ideas and I always want to do more. And then it's kind of like stopping myself and saying, Viv, you can, but you'll be working until 2 a.m., you know? And so putting that boundary, I think because I'm such a passionate, you know, I'm a very passionate personality. So that's probably my biggest challenge right now. And reminding me like why I'm doing it. It's like you want to like close your laptop an hour earlier because like that's important for you. Do it. Don't think that you're like chasing doing 3 more things on your to-do list will make it better, you know? Like, sure, it's the instant, you know, like dopamine of like, oh my God, I did 15 things on my to-do list today. Like, that gets me like really excited. Yeah. But also kind of balancing that out with having a more mindful life, and also I have a daughter, and like I want to be able to spend time with her. It's kind of finding that balance.
It's so hard. I can definitely relate to that because I have kind of the same issue where I'm so passionate about what I do. I can like stay for hours and hours on the topic and work on it and learn about it. But yeah, I'm also trying really hard to put boundaries with myself and have some kind of, not saying that I do a 9-to-5 job, but like saying I'm working from this time till this time. Yeah. Because otherwise, like,
exactly,
you can go on for like,
when you're doing something that you're really passionate about, you know, like time kind of like stops, but it's important to sort of like have that boundary and say, okay, I could do it, but I don't think it's really worth it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But also I don't want to like overpromise to, you know, any of my clients and be like, sure, I'll do this for you today. And then actually I go, oh no, I cannot. And then I overpromise because I gave like a deadline that's not, that's actually not realistic.
Yeah, learning to say no as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big people pleaser.
Yeah, same here. Yes, of course I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
48 hours, yes, of course, no problem.
And it's so weird because like I'm very good at telling other people, like, don't do this, like, don't overpromise. You're over, like I'm very good. It's always the same thing, you know. Like you're very good at recognizing those patterns in other people and the people that I have in my team. Like I go, no, you do not have the time to do this. How can we alleviate that from your plate? But for me, I'm like very bad at doing it. Not very bad. Learning. Work in progress.
Do you have an accountability buddy or like someone who kind of helps you with that?
Right now it's my husband.
Yeah.
But I think I should like find someone who's less in like day to day.
Yeah, because I find that it can be really hard to stop yourself or kind of auto-manage yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
For this kind of thing. So having someone sometimes who kind of tell you now you need to stop or
that's a good idea actually.
I mean I'm not at that point yet at all, but I think in the future I'd like to have someone who kind of can help me with that. Right, so let's talk about Fashion Conversations. So can you tell us a little bit more about this?
So Fashion Conversations is a community that I co-founded in 2019. So we're celebrating next month our 4th year anniversary. Oh, wow. It's very daunting. I started this with a very good friend of mine, Mariana Ferro. Hi, Mariana. It's funny because I reached out to her initially. Like we didn't know each other, but I was organizing like networking dinners at the time, so I was always researching people to come in and like speak because we always had like a host who was someone from the industry, and I reached out and we basically just like it was like we bonded at first sight. We went on a coffee that became like a drink and then 2 drinks, and then it was also Valentine's Day and we didn't have plans because both of our partners were out of town, and then it just was like instant connection. And so she's now a very good friend, but we started Fashion Conversations because we both come from the industry but also have different backgrounds, and we both come from other countries. She comes from Italy, I come from Belgium. I've lived in like different places, she also has. And so through the years we kind of learned and met people that were amazing but not living in the same place, working in the fashion industry, but again having like very different jobs within the industry. And we just wanted to create a space where we could connect those people together. Because I think in London specifically, what happens very often, more than in other countries, is like people are very eager or very kind of open to being introed, to being connected with others. That happens a lot more than in any other country that I've lived in, which is great. But then when you introduce people, you kind of don't know what happens afterwards.
Them.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how basically Fashion Conversations started. And then we really we are about connecting and creating meaningful conversations within the industry, but also and tapping into our collective intelligence. So we not only help people connect with each other, what is important for us is also connecting people not just across the industry, but across different countries, because you could be having exactly the same issues or challenges whether you are based in, like in London or in Cairo or wherever, in the world, as long as you're working on kind of the same topic. Or, I think people who work within the fashion industry, a lot of us, that we want to kind of have an impact, but we also find it so daunting sometimes. And so it's about like bringing our collective intelligence together, bringing our resources together, helping each other in a much more efficient way, but also organic way. And so we organize it, like we have different ways for our members to connect. We're also a nonprofit, so we're really trying to do this just really to create like impact and have an impact on like people's mission. But specifically, like Marianne and myself, we don't really believe in like for-profit communities. I know it's a like big thing and great for other people who who are doing it. Like, we don't think this is really how we see the our community. So if anyone wants to sponsor Fashion Conversations, please send me a DM. But yeah, because we're based in now 14 different countries, we have more than 150 members. We have different ways that we connect our community. We have regular calls on Fridays where there's always a theme or there's a speaker, and we try to bring kind of a topic like of the moment or that could be useful for our members. We also have events, and we're working on the next one for June that will be open to like people outside of the community also. We're working on a few like potential partnerships, and yeah, it's really super interesting. And it's just amazing when you kind of hear someone who connected or that we helped through our community, or like it's those kind of things that just make you feel kind of alive and really making a good thing.
Yeah, it's meaningful. I mean, I'm really excited about this because I've just applied to be part of the community. So I'm really looking forward to see like all the great things that you've planned for Fashion Conversations. But yeah, I'm interested to go back to something that you said about like, because I mean, I don't necessarily know a lot about how building communities and so on. So why did you say that you don't necessarily believe in for-profit communities? What's the difference really? What would you say?
Yeah, I think because we are very conscious about bringing a lot of different expertise within the industry, and we also know that by adding a price tag to the relationship that we're building or the service that we're offering, however you want to call it, it would deter some people from joining. Now, there's pros and there's cons, obviously, but there are some people who are in the community who could not afford it, or it would maybe slightly change the relationship that we have with our members. And right now, what is very important to us is, we're obviously like growing and scaling. We're, accepting like new members like yourselves, but it's not about like rapid scale. For us, it's really about finding people who share our mindset and who have the same sort of, not vision, but the same values. However you ask people to pay, however much you ask people to pay, it slightly changes the dialogue. And that's not really what, I think what feels comfortable for us, or what feels natural to us. So, yeah, we do sort of, for example, when we do in-person events, we ask for a ticket, and people are more than, happy to pay for that. And that's normal because we book like, a space, food and beverages, etc. But I think for the rest, that's why we kind of want to try and find some, long-term partners who could like support our mission, but not asking the members, because then it slightly distorts the,
Yeah, I guess from even from, as you said, from an inclusion perspective, people might not be able to afford these kind of things. And also, I feel like now there are so many different clubs and communities and things that you can be part of, which is great, by the way, because I think like a couple of years ago, when you were an entrepreneur or a founder, like you didn't necessarily have all these communities, that you kind of had to do it to build your network by yourself. So having this community is super important and it's great. But I feel like I do agree with you. I think that because there are so many now, we need to make sure that they are all like really, really inclusive, and that it's not just about one community or like one type of person.
Yeah, and I think we really try to find sort of that sweet spot between, you know, like a members club, like a Stack World, Soho House, etc., and a random WhatsApp group that you're a part of. You know, there's so many of these WhatsApp groups where you just added, you don't know who's on it. Sometimes there's good conversations or some good, like, interesting messages. Sometimes it's, you know, not that great.
Yeah.
But it's like finding that balance between the two, and we've discussed a lot about it, you know, and everyone has their own opinion about what we should be doing. But for the moment, we really do feel like putting a price tag, and especially if we're in different countries, like the value of even like €5 will have a different value, £5, you know, in London, or for someone who lives in like Portugal or you know, or Romania, or like we really have members across the world. So yeah, I think for the moment this is what sounds, you know, feels good. We'll see how it evolves, but yeah.
That's great. It's super exciting, and I'm really looking forward to see like all the things that are planned. Yeah, I will put a link in the description for if people want to have a look.
Yes, definitely. Join. We're on Instagram now. We have a LinkedIn page, and we're really working on bringing also value to not only our members but people who like follow us. We're starting to do like a few things, sort of to, you know, like a newsletter, and to kind of have a, you know, wrap up of like interesting things we've seen, or that we want to share. And then like even I think tomorrow we'll post about a few like jobs that we've, you know, seen from our network or from our members, you know, things that really sort of bring value and can help great people connect and or find jobs, or, you know, find interesting like insights and things like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's great. So I guess now looking back with all the experiences that you had with like, you know, your business as a consultant, your being a co-founder at the Fashion Conversations, are there things that you would do differently?
I don't know. Probably tons. But also, I guess maybe if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have like the learnings, and I wouldn't be here today. Like I think definitely what like every experience that I've had like led me to where I'm at today. So I don't know, actually. And I try to like not regret things. It's hard. And again, learning in progress.
Yeah.
Work in progress. But yeah, I think it's hard to kind of go back and just say, I should have done this like differently, or should have done it this way, or because I'm an overthinker also. So when I sort of like start thinking like that, it's not really good, like a good pattern. So I try to kind of stop that voice inside my head. So I don't know.
Well, you can say no. You know,
I don't think so.
Maybe you're really happy with. Like,
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I was just wondering because, you know, sometimes you hear a lot of different things from different people, from like different entrepreneurs and their life and stuff, and you're like, it all seems like they figured out like this all together, like, but sometimes it's not about regrets, but you kind of look back and you're like, oh, maybe I should have done this earlier, or maybe I should.
No, I think maybe my first job after Louis Vuitton, like I was so naive. But because again, I had a great experience. Like overall, I had a great experience, and I think I was just kind of going into another company, going into another job, which also is like a very big challenge. It was a new role. I had to sort of like establish the role myself, etc. And I think I probably would have like asked more questions, or tried to understand a bit more, like prepare a bit more. I think it was all like very. Hello, I'm here.
I'm here to help.
Yeah, exactly. It's me, Viviane. And I'm kind of being challenged from the first day. And I was like, oh, okay. I was not expecting that. So I think probably I would have, like not prepared, but I probably would have liked to understand a bit more, like challenge a bit more what was sort of like offered and where I was being put. But
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Years later,
Yeah.
it was like a really interesting experience.
Yeah.
Like, was I on the verge of, burnout? Yeah, but, kind of lesson learned, I guess.
It taught you a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
What tips would you give young people who are either, I mean, I know it's two like very different things, but who would like to get into fashion entrepreneurial adventure or an entrepreneurial adventure overall? What tips would you give young people that are kind of want to do that but maybe a bit scared to jump in? And
I think just starting is already a good one, like I think the first step is always the hardest. And I also didn't know anyone like when I was kind of like thinking of working in fashion. Like seriously, I was this like young kid and studying in Belgium at a business school, and I was like, I could go into finance or consulting as like 85% of my, friends, colleagues. But I'm also probably going to be super bored and like, am I going to be really happy? Don't think so. So with, like starting from that, I kind of had to figure things out. And I just started reaching out to people. And I think like we also discussed about this, it's like people will really love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
So, like right on that ego trip.
Yeah.
And just ask people and say, I'm very, like your experience seems absolutely incredible. I'm kind of asking myself a few questions to be in your field or your type of industry. Would love to have like, a short conversation with you to understand a bit how you did it. Most people won't answer, but you only need a few, right? So I think that's the biggest, probably the biggest struggle that I had in, at the beginning. And that can be kind of daunting. Just start and, even if only a few people, if you do it with kindness and you do it with authenticity, you have like nothing to lose.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point because we talked about it already, but I was so scared at the very beginning of being like, oh my God, I will need to reach out to people. Like, why would they like to talk to me? I don't want to bother them. I don't want to take too much of their time, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that actually from all the people that I contacted, like overall, whether it's for the podcast or like just to have a chat or whatever, I think more than half of them actually answered and said, First, because, they like talking about themselves, obviously, and that doesn't cost them too much to do that. But also, like, the point you said around being kind and authentic, I think if people feel that you come to them with real intentions and authentic intentions and that you're just here to learn, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Then people are mostly happy to help. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
They can either not answer or say, so kind for you to reach out. I don't have the time. Yeah. Like, I don't think anyone will ever say, oh my God, that is so rude. And you're like, why would you ask me to explain and give you like all of my tips? You see what I mean? Like, most people are not like that. Yeah. So just like start. And nowadays we have so many amazing tools. Like, I even reached out sometimes on Instagram to people, and even recently I was reaching out to like a CEO of a very big company in France. Like, they went on like on TV. I was like, oh my God, I loved your, your little segment on a TV show. I had this idea. I don't know. And I even wrote it. I'm like, I don't know if you're going to see my Instagram message because I'm sure you get a ton of them. But in case you do and you're interested, let me know. And he replied, a couple of weeks later, but he said, thank you so much, Viviane, for reaching out. That's such a lovely message. Like, actually, this idea might be a bit too early, but, I'll keep it in mind. Have a great day. I'm like, thank you.
Nice.
Like, super nice. Yeah. And even if he hadn't answered, I'm sure he probably wasn't bothered by my message, No, so, you never know.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Right. So after everything that we talked about today, what would you say is your superpower?
Oh, I don't know.
I have the exact same reaction from everyone who comes here, like, wow.
I think I'm very funny.
That could be a superpower. I mean, that is definitely.
No, I think maybe that's kind of like not my superpower, but I think I make people at ease, like I connect with people. But again, like, not in, try to always find like something that we like have in common or something where we can connect. And like finding that out. So you create like rapport with someone. I think that's probably what I didn't realize initially it was a superpower of mine, and people have told me that.
Really?
I at first I thought everyone, was like very good at small talk, not small talk, but like creating a connection.
Yeah, being friendly.
And in the last couple of years, people have, like, it's funny, like sometimes more and more like people introduce me sometimes as like Viviane the super connector, or like Viviane knows everyone, or oh, Viviane has a great, and I go, oh, okay. Like when you hear people describe you to other people, that's kind of when you realize what your superpower is. But because I didn't realize it was, something that like I was an expert at. But creating that relationship very easily with people, I think like I'm pretty good at.
Yeah, and you have that energy as well. Like we can feel it. You have that like.
Yeah, but that's like there's days when I'm like I'm not in the mood.
Yeah.
Because it does take energy, you have to be really like intentional about connecting. It doesn't happen just because, like I'm actually like very intentional about it. And I remember actually when I was either working like at Ralph Lauren in the store, or I was working at Vuitton and I was like client facing, you kind of like, you go, okay, I'm like not on stage, but you're like, you put yourself out there, right? Like it really requires energy. So I do that. Like I'm very mindful about, doing it. And there's some times where I either have like an event or or I know there's something that will, where I want to bring that energy forward, but I don't have, I don't know,
in the mood,
and then I'd rather cancel than just go and do like, like halfway.
Yeah, I think that goes back to a lot of things we said, even about like putting boundaries, like around when you have that energy and when to actually do these kind of things. And it's something that I actually need to learn as well, because I'm someone who gets drained by other people in general, like like socially. Like I love being with people, but I'm also like a lone wolf. I like to say I'm a lone wolf and a social butterfly. Like I'm like but
introvert, extrovert.
Exactly. Yeah. But I need my alone time, and so I feel that sometimes I am not in the mood to go to that networking event, to do that things, but I kind of push myself to do it, and at the end I'm happy. But I mean, you
need to like recharge the batteries,
and then do I go there with the right mindset? Am I that welcoming as well? Do people really want to come and talk to me? Because people feel and see when someone is uncomfortable, and like, so I need to be more aware of that.
Listen to yourself.
Yes. Exactly. That's a really good tip. So superpower is building connections. Right. So which change maker would you like to hear from next in this podcast?
Ooh, I know, because you've had some like interesting people on your podcast already, and I know you've interviewed someone I know.
Oh, yes.
I really do think that one of the big topics that we all need to sort of like discuss is either our planet Earth or like mental health, because I do think like those are two really big things that are more and more permanent in our lives, and that need to be tackled. So anyone who has like good tips on that
would be welcome.
I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I actually have, so you're going to be in season 2 actually, which is going to be focused on fashion change makers. So I actually talk to a lot of people who are in the fashion sustainability place and talk a lot about
fashion and mental health.
Yeah, and fashion and mental health as well are connected. Yeah, definitely. So okay, that's a good one. I'll think about it. But if you have an idea at some point, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
Cool. Well, I guess we're getting to the end of that podcast. That was a really cool conversation. Yeah, thank you so much.
No,
Viviane.
thanks, Laura. That was fun.
Yeah, it was great, and I hope that it kind of gave listeners also some great inspiration and tips on how to manage being an entrepreneur or like working in fashion. Or
And if not, send feedback.
Yeah.
Send, questions.
Sign up to the fashion conversation.
No, but like, if you thought it was crap, let me know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it wasn't. It was a really like authentic and organic conversation.
Cool.
So super grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you, Viviane. Follow the WonderWorkers podcast so that every 2 weeks you can get notified when a new episode is out. And I must say, if you don't, that's okay. But that would be a big miss because we have more inspiring and powerful guests to come. So let's meet up in 2 weeks for a new episode of WonderWorkers, a podcast that transports you into the world of our modern change catalysts and empowers you too to change the world. This podcast is created and hosted by me, Laura Warnod, founder of the Culture Cabinet. Thank you to Content is Queen for producing the podcast. But above all, thank you for listening. See you soon!